You know what's funny? People always say blood is thicker than water until there's money involved. Then suddenly, everyone's a shark. My name's Clara Monroe, and 3 months ago, my phone buzzed with a call that split my life clean in two. Clara, a crisp voice said, "This is Anthony Reed from Monroe and Associates. I'm calling regarding your grandfather's estate." I almost laughed. "You must have the wrong Clara. My parents made sure my grandfather forgot I existed." A pause. "Actually, Miss Monroe, he didn't." That was the day I found out my millionaire grandfather, Edward Monroe, founder of Monroe Real Estate Holdings, left everything to me. His mansion, his stocks, his collection of cars, his $20 million trust, all mine. The man my parents said wanted nothing to do with me had apparently spent the last decade quietly making sure I'd never need them again. When I showed up at his funeral, heads turned like I'd walked in dripping gasoline. The Monroe family was all there. My parents, my perfect brother Damon, the relatives who'd always pretended I was invisible. My mother's lips pressed into that thin, "you're embarrassing me" smile she used when I was a kid. My father didn't even look at me. Damon smirked. Guess Grandpa finally ran out of people to control. I didn't reply. I just stood near the back, clutching my purse and staring at the coffin. The air smelled like lilies and secrets. When the will was read 2 days later, that air turned toxic. Anthony Reed cleared his throat and said, "Edward Monroe leaves the entirety of his estate, estimated at approximately $20 million, to his granddaughter, Clara Monroe." You could have heard a pin drop, right before my mom exploded. "This is absurd," she snapped. "He must have been manipulated. She barely knew him." Anthony stayed calm. Mr. Monroe's mental state was verified. The will was notarized and updated only 6 months before his passing. I just sat there, my heart thudding like I'd swallowed a drum. My father's face went pale. "There must be a mistake. I was his only son." Anthony shook his head. "The decision is final, sir." And just like that, the room shifted. People who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly wanted to talk. My mother's voice turned honey-sweet. My father called me sweetheart for the first time since I was 9. But I'd seen that tone before. The same one they used when they wanted to use me, not love me. So I walked out. 2 weeks later, I moved into my grandfather's old house, a marble and glass estate on the outskirts of Beverly Hills. It felt like walking into someone else's dream. The man had money in his wallpaper. Every surface gleamed. His study smelled like cigars and mahogany. And on his desk was a framed photo. Me, age 10, missing a front tooth, sitting on his lap. He'd kept that all these years. That's when I broke down. For the first time in forever, I felt seen. Not for what I could offer, not for what I owed, just me. For about a month, life felt stable, peaceful even, until the lawsuit hit. I came home from brunch one morning and found a thick envelope waiting at the gate. "Notice of civil claim," it read. Inside, a lawsuit from my own parents, seeking $20 million in damages for emotional distress and unjust inheritance. I laughed. Then I cried. Then I poured myself a drink because what else do you do when the people who raised you are suing in for existing? They claimed Grandpa had been coerced, that I'd manipulated an old man into changing his will. It was insane. I hadn't even seen him in years. Still, they went full throttle. Fancy lawyers, PR whispers, local news drama. My greedy betrayal made headlines in the Los Angeles Post. "Orphaned heiress faces family feud over fortune." Cute headline, ugly truth. The first hearing came fast. The courthouse was packed with reporters, flashing cameras, the whole circus. I wore a black suit my grandfather's tailor had sent, sharp enough to slice through their pity. When I walked in, my mom rolled her eyes like she couldn't believe I'd actually shown up. "Of course she's here." she muttered loud enough for people to hear. She's always loved attention. My father smirked beside her. Don't worry, sweetheart. We'll get what's rightfully ours. I bit my tongue so hard it bled. That's when the judge, a tall man with a stare like steel, looked up from his papers and froze. Wait, he said, his voice echoing through the courtroom. The charges are against her? Everyone went silent. Even my parents stopped whispering. The judge turned to my parents' lawyer. Mr. Green, are you aware of who Miss Monroe is? The man blinked, but the judge interrupted. No, she's Edward Monroe's legal heir and executive trustee of the Monroe Foundation, which funds this very courthouse's renovation project. You could practically hear my mom's jaw hit the floor. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was screaming. Grandpa, you sneaky genius. Turns out, my grandfather hadn't just left me money, he'd left me power. He'd made me a silent board member on several of his companies, including one that funded judicial reform in California. The judge knew exactly who I was. And that's when I realized Grandpa didn't just want to take care of me, he wanted to protect me from them. The judge postponed the case pending further review. Outside, reporters swarmed. Clara, how does it feel to be sued by your parents? Do you think your inheritance is fair? Are you planning to countersue? I just smiled and said, some people only show love when there's money on the table. I'm just grateful I finally learned who they really are. That quote made every headline by morning. That night, I sat in the grand piano room staring at the city lights below. Every flicker looked like a memory. My mom ignoring me at school plays, my dad calling me a mistake during one of his whiskey nights. Now, they wanted millions from me. I picked up my phone and called Anthony Reed. I'm done playing nice. Let's fight. He paused. You sure, Clara? This could get ugly. I looked at my reflection. Calm, sharp, dangerous. Good, I said. Let's make it uglier. From that day on, I wasn't just a girl defending an inheritance. I was a woman rewriting a bloodline. I started digging. Every lawyer has a paper trail. Every hypocrite leaves fingerprints. Turns out, my parents weren't the innocent victims they pretended to be. My father had embezzled from one of Grandpa's shell charities years ago, $400,000, covered up with forged invoices. My mother? She'd signed them. It was all there, hidden in company archives my grandfather had locked behind encryption. And you know what? The password was my birthday. That night, I opened a bottle of wine, leaned back in the study, and whispered, Grandpa, you planned this, didn't you? I could almost hear his voice, deep, calm, smug. They never deserved it, Clara, but you earned it. I smiled through the tears. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the broken one in the family. They were. And I was just getting started. The next morning, I got a message from an unknown number. A photo of my parents, sitting with a man I'd never seen before. The caption read, "They're planning something bigger than a lawsuit, and you're not ready for it." The photo on my phone sat like a live grenade in my hand. My parents at a cafe with a man who looked too polished to be random. Designer suit, slick smile, eyes that screamed lawyer or worse. The message said, they're planning something bigger than a lawsuit, and you're not ready for it. My chest tightened, but I didn't delete it. I'd learned that fear is just data. You use it or drown in it. I drove downtown to Anthony's office, nerves buzzing. The city looked different when you're being hunted by your own blood, colder, sharper, like every billboard whispered your name. Anthony was pacing when I arrived. "You saw the article?" he asked. "They went public with new claims. Fraud, elder manipulation, tax cover-ups. They're throwing spaghetti at the wall." I dropped the phone on his desk. "They're meeting someone. Find out who." He studied the photo, jaw tensing. "That's Daniel Keene, private investigator, ex-cop, does dirty work for cash. If they hired him, they're digging for skeletons." I laughed, bitter. They won't have to dig far. They buried half of them. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house sounded like betrayal breathing down my neck. I wandered into Grandpa's study and stared at his portrait. "Why me?" I whispered. "Why make me the target of your revenge plan?" No answer, just the faint hum of the city outside. The next morning, a black car idled across the street. Same one the night before. I snapped a photo and sent it to Anthony. "They're watching me now." His reply came fast. "Lay low, no press, no statements." But I was done hiding. I called Damon, my golden boy brother. "Meet me at Café Verve, noon." He showed up late, smelling like cologne and entitlement. "Wow, Clara," he said, sliding into the booth. "I thought you'd be in Switzerland by now, spending our inheritance." "It's my inheritance," I shot back. "And tell Mom and Dad to stop playing games." He smirked. "They just want what's fair. You could end this, you know. Cut them a check, call it peace." "Peace?" I leaned forward. "They called me worthless my whole life. Now they want millions? That's not peace, Damon. That's extortion." He shrugged, sipping his latte like it was blood money. "You've changed." "No," I said. "I just stopped apologizing." When I left, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. "Check your grandfather's office safe. Now." I rushed home, heart pounding. The safe was behind a false panel, and I hadn't opened it before. Inside, stacks of old documents and a small flash drive. I plugged it into the computer. Folder name, 4C. Inside, scanned letters. Correspondence between Grandpa and my parents. I clicked one dated 2 years ago. "Edward, stop playing favorites. Clara doesn't deserve a dime." Another. "If you don't revise the will, we'll go public with what happened to Rebecca." My stomach dropped. Rebecca? The name hit like a ghost. My mother's sister. The one who ran away when I was little. Grandpa's notes under the message said, "They know what they did. Keep everything sealed." I printed the files and called Anthony. "We need to talk about Rebecca." He went silent. "Clara, that's a dead zone. Your parents never filed a missing person report. There's nothing official." "Exactly," I said. "That's the problem." He exhaled. "You think she's—" "I think they made her disappear." I started to see my parents' lawsuit for what it really was, a distraction. They weren't after the inheritance, they were after what Grandpa hid. The will was just the cover story. I met Jules at a dive bar off Sunset, rain hammering the windows. She slid me a folder. "Keene's digging too," she said. "Your father paid him under the table to find a safety deposit box registered to your aunt's maiden name. That box could ruin them. Or you." I flipped through photos of the investigator trailing me, one shot from right outside my gate. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. "Then we get there first." That night I drove to the downtown vault, using Grandpa's old keychain. The clerk recognized the Monroe name and didn't ask questions. The click open, and inside was a single VHS tape labeled July 3rd, 2009. I didn't even own a player, so I took it to Jules' place. When we pressed play, grainy footage filled the screen. A family barbecue. Grandpa laughing, my parents smiling too wide, Rebecca sitting beside me feeding me cake. Then chaos. My father shouting, camera jerking, my mother dragging Rebecca inside. The sound cut, but the image froze on Rebecca's terrified face. Then static. My blood ran cold. Jules rewound it. "She filmed over something," she said. "Your parents tried to erase this." She handed me a flash drive. "I'll digitize it, but Clara, if this surfaces, your parents are finished." I stared at the screen, whispering, "Good." Over the next week, everything shifted. My father called, his voice sugar-coated. "We don't have to be enemies, honey. Let's meet, just family." I agreed, on my terms. We met at the mansion. My mother hugged me like we were actors in some twisted play. Clara, darling, we were wrong to push you away. I laughed in her face. Cut the act, Mom. You're terrified, and you should be. Her eyes darkened. You have no idea what you were doing. No, I said quietly. For once, I do. Anthony tried to stop me from going public. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. I sent him the digitized tape. They crossed it first. The footage leaked anonymously a day later. Social media exploded. Monroe family scandal, missing aunt resurfaces in leaked tape. Reporters camped outside my gate again, but this time I didn't hide. I walked out in a red suit, smiled for the cameras, and said, "Truth doesn't need permission." Inside, though, I was unraveling. Power feels good until you realize it's built on graves. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The nightmares replayed that frozen image of Rebecca's face. Jules texted me. "There's more. Keen found Rebecca alive. She wants to meet you." My breath caught. "Where?" I typed. "Old motel near Santa Rosa. Tomorrow night." I drove up the coast alone, wind whipping my hair, heart in my throat. The motel smelled of mildew and endings. When I opened the door to room 8, she was there. Older, thinner, eyes hollow, but alive. "Clara," she whispered. "You look just like him." "Grandpa?" She nodded. "He tried to save me." Tears blurred my vision. "What happened?" She swallowed hard. "Your father stole from the company. When I threatened to expose him, your mother framed me for fraud. They paid Keen to fake my death. I've been hiding ever since." My stomach twisted. "They ruined your life. And they'll ruin yours if you don't finish what he started," she said, gripping my hand. "End them." I drove back to LA at dawn, mind racing. I had evidence, witnesses, the press on my side. But I also had a soul turning to stone. Still, I sent everything to Anthony with one line: "File the countersuit." He replied, "Already did." By the time my parents' lawyers called begging for settlement, it was too late. The judge reviewed the new evidence and froze their assets. Damon vanished overseas. My parents' faces were everywhere. Fraud, cover-ups, lies. And me? I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt hollow. Grandpa's portrait watched me like he knew revenge came with interest. That night, I poured whiskey and stared out over the city. My phone buzzed, unknown number again. This time, no photo, just a single line: "Rebecca isn't the only one who survived." The text, "Rebecca isn't the only one who survived," sat on my screen like a loaded gun. For a second, I thought it was spam until another message arrived. "Meet me where it started." No address, just coordinates that led to the old Monroe construction site, the one Grandpa used to say was cursed ground. I drove there at midnight, headlights cutting through the fog. The place looked abandoned. Rusted cranes, half-collapsed scaffolds, the smell of damp cement. My boots echoed against the concrete as I called out, "Who's there?" A figure stepped from the shadows. Damon, my perfect brother, hair messy, eyes wild. "You really thought I'd run?" he said. "I'm not like them." "Then what's this?" I held up the phone. He smirked. "That was me. I needed to talk without them knowing." His voice cracked. "They're planning to disappear. Fake passports, Cayman accounts. They'll blame you for everything." I studied him, trying to read the truth in his face. Damon always had a tell, a twitch in his jaw when he lied, but tonight it stayed still. "Why warn me?" I asked. "Because," he said quietly, "I can't live with what they did to Rebecca. Or to you." He handed me a flash drive. Grandpa kept backups. "This has the transfers, offshore ledgers, emails. Enough to bury them forever." I took it, but before I could speak, headlights flared behind us. A black SUV roared into the site. Damon shoved me behind a pillar. "Go," he hissed. Gunfire split the air. I ducked, heart slamming. By the time I looked up, Damon was gone. Blood on the gravel, the SUV vanishing into the dark. I drove straight to Anthony's, shaking so hard I nearly dropped the keys. They killed him, my own parents. He poured me water, his face gray. "We'll call the police." "No," I snapped. "They'll spin it. They always do. We end this our way." He hesitated. "Clara, you're talking about vengeance, not justice. Maybe they're the same thing now."
We spent the next 2 days locked in his office, combing through Damon's drive. The files were worse than I imagined. Money laundering, shell companies, fake charities using sick kids as cover. Grandpa had built empires. They'd hollowed them out. Anthony's voice broke. If this goes public, your parents will be indicted. Good, I said, but I'm not giving it to the press. Not yet. Instead, I arranged a meeting. I told my mother I'd sign over half the estate if they met me privately. She agreed in seconds. The greed never failed. We met at the mansion's glass atrium, the same room where Grandpa used to host charity galas. She walked in wearing pearls, pretending we were still a family. My father followed, eyes darting, calculating exits. "Let's end this nonsense," she said sweetly. "You can keep the house. We just want liquidity." I placed the flash drive on the table. "This is everything you've stolen. Every lie, every cover-up." Her smile twitched. "Clara, darling, don't be dramatic. Damon's dead." The color drained from her face. "Accident?" my father muttered. "He made choices." "So did you," I said, sliding the drive toward them.
My mother reached for the drive, but I stopped her. "You'll make a public statement tomorrow. Confess to the fraud, clear my name, withdraw the lawsuit, or that data goes to every federal office in California." My father laughed, low and cruel. "You think anyone will believe you? You're the spoiled granddaughter who cracked under pressure." I leaned in, voice cold. "Then why are your hands shaking?" They left without agreeing, but I knew fear when I saw it. That night, the mansion alarms went off at 3 a.m. Someone had tried to break into the study. Security footage showed only a blur, but the safe was empty. The drive gone. I sat on the floor, shaking with rage. A new text buzzed. "Nice try, Clara. Game's not over." I called Jules. "They stole the evidence." "Then we steal it back," she said. By dawn, she traced the SUV's plates to a storage facility in the valley. We broke in before sunrise. Bolt cutters, flashlights, adrenaline. Inside one of the units sat my parents' car and a stack of suitcases. On top of them, the missing flash drive. But next to it, another device. A phone still recording. My mother's voice filled the air. "She'll never stop, unless we make her disappear too." The recording was time-stamped an hour earlier. They were coming for me. I grabbed the drive, smashed the phone, and ran. Jules drove like hell back to the city while I called Anthony. "Send the files now," I ordered. "Every outlet, every agency." He hesitated. "Clara, once it's out, you can't take it back." "Do it." By noon, the world knew. News anchors write off numbers like they were body counts. Federal agents swarmed Monroe Holdings. My parents were arrested leaving their lawyer's office, caught on live TV. The footage looped all day. My mother screaming my name, my father hiding his face. The headlines didn't call me greedy anymore. They called me the heiress who brought down her bloodline. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I stood in the silent mansion and cried until the walls blurred. Every victory cost me someone. Grandpa, Damon, Rebecca's lost years, maybe even the version of me that still believed in family. When the phone rang again, I almost didn't answer. It was Rebecca. "It's over," I said. "They're in custody." She was quiet a long time. "It's never over, Clara. There's something you don't know about Damon." My chest tightened. "What?" "He's alive. They staged it. He's the one who sent the hit, not them." The world tilted. "No!" I whispered. "He gave me the drive." "And he gave them another one, the one with your name all over the fraud."